Easy there, Martha. It's just a bit of thunder. Dear, no need to spill your tea. The lights flickered, that's all. You know, ... This weather reminds me of a specific smell, wet wool and stale tobacco. You think this thunder is loud, George. This is a lullaby compared to what I heard out on the Blackwood Rock. Oh, I haven't told you about the rock. I wasn't always this old man fighting with a walker. Once, I had eyes like a hawk and nerves of steel. It was 1954. When I was 24, I took a job where no one else dared to go. A job that almost cost me my soul. Is everyone comfortable? Nurse Sarah, could you perhaps dim the lights just a fraction? It feels ... appropriate. Thank you. Love. And please, check on Mr. Henderson in the corner. He looks like he's about to fall asleep in his soup again. Wake up, Henderson. You won't want to miss this one. Listen to that wind howling outside. It's whistling through the cracks of this old building. Most people find it frightening, but I find it ... nostalgic. It takes me back. It pulls at the loose threads of my memory. We sit here, in our comfortable armchairs, with our heated blankets and our scheduled medications. We are safe. The biggest danger we face today is lukewarm coffee or a missing puzzle piece. But looking at your frail, wrinkled, beautiful survivor's eye, remember that we weren't always like this. We were strong once. We were arrogant. We thought we were immortal. I certainly did. I look at my hands now. Look at them. Liver spots, shaking tremors, skin like parchment paper. But there was a time when these hands could haul a 50-pound line of wet rope without a blister. There was a time when my back was straight as a mast, and my hair was thick and dark. I want to take you back to a time before I knew the meaning of fear. Before I knew that silence could be louder than noise. It brings me to the year 1954. When I was 24, I was running away. Not from the law, no, nothing like that. I was running away from a broken heart. Her name was Clara, but that's a story for another day, a Saturday. I wanted to be as far away from people as possible. I wanted the horizon. I wanted the salt air to scrub my brain clean. So I signed up for the Lighthouse service. They looked at me, a strapping young lad, 24 years old, full of muscle and angst, and they gave me the post nobody wanted. Blackwood Rock, the station master said, chewing on a cigar that smelled like burning tires. It's 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Just you, the birds, and the light. Think you can handle the quiet, son. Primera, la UGD. At 24 you think silence is just the absence of noise. You don't realize that silence is a heavy thing. It as weight. It presses down on you. I can handle anything, I told him. 2 days later, a supply boat dropped me off. Blackwood Rock wasn't an island. It was a jagged tooth of granite sticking out of the freezing Atlantic Ocean, miles from the coast of Maine. There was no beach, no trees. Just cold, gray stone and a white tower rising 100 feet into the air. The previous keeper, a man named Old Tom, was waiting on the dock. He didn't say hello. He just handed me a heavy ring of iron keys. I remember looking into his eyes, they were white watery, and constantly darting around, looking over my shoulder at the sea. Keep the light turning, Old Tom whispered to me, and lock the lower door at sunset. Always lock the lower door, I asked, throwing my duffel bag onto the concrete. Who's going to break in? The seagulls. Old Tom didn't laugh. He just climbed onto the boat that had brought me. As the engine sputtered to life and the boat pulled away, leaving me stranded there, he yelled one last thing over the roar of the waves. Don't answer the knock. I stood there on the dock, watching the boat disappear into the mist. I was the king of my own castle. I was 24. I was strong, and I was completely, utterly alone. The first week was easy. It was exactly what I wanted. The lighthouse was a machine, and I was its mechanic. My routine was strict. Wake up at 4 p.m. Breakfast, which was really dinner. checked the oil reserves, polished the massive Fresnel lens glass so thick and beautiful it looked like a diamond the size of a car. At sunset, I would crank the mechanism. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. The gears would engage, and the light would start its slow rotation. Flash, dot, dot, darkness. Dot, dot, dot. Flash, dot, dot, darkness. I felt important. I was the star that guided the ships, but by the second week, the novelty wore off. The silence began to creep in. You know how it is here in the home at night. When the nurses leave and the hallways go quiet, imagine that silence, but amplify it by 1,000. There was no radio signal out there, no television, just the sound of the ocean slapping against the rocks. Slap, slap, slap. It never stopped. I started talking to myself. Well, Elias, looks like beans on toast again tonight. I'd say to the empty kitchen. Good weather for a swim, eh? I'd ask the dust motes floating in the air. My voice sounded strange in the circular stone room. It bounced off the walls, sounding hollow. I started to notice things. Small things. I'd leave my coffee mug on the table, turn around to check the logbook, and when I turned back, the mug would be 3 inches to the left. Vibrations, I told myself. It's just the vibrations from the ocean. I was 24. Remember? I was a man of science and logic. I didn't believe in ghosts. I believed in gears, oil, and tides. But then came the 3rd week. The fog rolled in. This wasn't like the mist we get here in the garden, Martha. This was a thick, yellow, soup-like fog. It swallowed the world. I couldn't see the water from the gallery deck. I couldn't see the bottom of the lighthouse from the top. It felt like the lighthouse was floating in a void of nothingness. That's when the sounds started. At first, it sounded like wet footsteps. Squish. S-Q-U-I-S-H. ... squish. I'd be up in the lantern room, cleaning the glass, and I'd swear I heard someone walking on the metal grating of the walkway outside. I'd freeze. My heart would hammer against my ribs, that strong, 24-year-old heart, beating like a drum. I'd grab my heavy flashlight and kick the door open. Who's there? I'd shout into the fog. Nothing. Just the swirling mist and the damp cold that soaked into my bones. It's just the wind, I'd mutter. Just the wind, playing tricks. But deep down in the pit of my stomach, I knew wind didn't sound like heavy boots on metal. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I had just opened a tin of peaches, a treat I saved for Tuesdays. The storm that had been brewing all day finally broke. It was violent. The waves were smashing against the lighthouse so hard that the pictures on my wall were tilting. The whole tower, thousands of tons of stone, was swaying. Just a little bit, but enough to make you dizzy. I was in the kitchen, on the 2nd floor, reading a book I had already read 3 times. I dropped my book. The sound came from below, from the heavy iron door at the base of the tower. The door that led to the outside platform. The door old Tom told me to lock. And I had locked it. I checked it 3 times, every sunset. My blood ran cold. That wasn't the ocean. That was a fist, a heavy, solid fist pounding on the iron door. I looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. Who knocks on a lighthouse door in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean during a storm? Hello, I called out. My voice was shaky. I wasn't the brave 24-year-old anymore. I was a frightened boy. It was insistent. Urgent! I grabbed a heavy wrench from the toolbox. It was the only weapon I had. I started to descend the spiral staircase. The stairs were made of iron mesh, so I could see all the way down to the bottom. It was dark down there, shadows dancing as the lightning flashed outside the tiny porthole windows. The cold air rising from the bottom smelled different tonight. It smelled like seaweed and ... decay. Like dead fish that had been left in the sun. I reached the bottom landing. The heavy iron door stood there, bolted shut. The impact was so strong dust fell from the ceiling. "Open up!" A voice, muffled by the thick steel, cried out. I froze. It was a man's voice, but it sounded ... wet, gurgling, like he had water in his lungs. "Who are you?" I shouted, gripping the wrench so hard my knuckles turned white. "Let me in, Elias. It's cold. The water is so cold." I stepped back. How did he know my name? "Who are you?" I screamed. "It's Tom! It's old Tom!" I fell off the boat. "Elias, I've been swimming. Let me in." My heart stopped. Old Tom, he had left 3 weeks ago. No one could swim for 3 weeks. No one could survive in this water for 10 minutes, let alone 20 days. "You're lying!" I yelled. "Tom is on the mainland!" "Open the door." Boy, I'm freezing. The handle of the door began to turn. The heavy iron latch groaned. I watched in horror as the latch moved up, ... and then stopped. It was locked. I had the key in my pocket. "Open the door." The voice changed now. It wasn't pleading anymore. It was angry. It was a roar that didn't sound human. It sounded like the grinding of rocks underwater. The pounding became a frenzy. Bang, bang, bang. The door bowed inward. I saw the steel plate flex. Whatever was on the other side was incredibly strong. I stood there, 24 years old, paralyzed. My mind was racing. Was it a shipwreck survivor? Was I letting a man die? Or was it ... something else? Then the water started coming in. Not from the storm, but seeping under the doorframe. Dark, black, oily water. It pooled around my boots. I looked at the water, and I backed away. "Go away," I screamed. "You're not Tom." The pounding stopped abruptly. Silence. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the storm outside. Then a whisper came through the keyhole, a whisper that I can still hear today, 50 years later, when I try to sleep. "You have a long life ahead of you, Elias. But the sea is patient. We will wait." Then a sound of something sliding weightly against the metal, slithering away back into the ocean. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the stairs, ranting and watching that door until the sun came up. When dawn broke, the storm had passed. The sky was a bruise of purple and gray. I waited until the sun was fully up before I unlocked the door. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the keys twice. I pushed the door open. The concrete platform outside was empty. The sea was calm. But there, on the outside of the white-painted door, were scratches. Deep gouges in the steel, as if made by claws, and a puddle of that dark, oily water drying in the sun. Also, a piece of fabric. A torn piece of a blue wool coat. The same blue wool coat old Tom was wearing when he left. I radioed the mainland that morning. I lied. I told them I was sick. I told them my appendix burst. I told them anything to get them to send a boat. They picked me up 2 days later. When I got back to the shore, I asked the station master about old Tom. I asked if he had made it back safely 3 weeks ago. The station master looked at me, took the cigar out of his mouth, and frowned. Tom never made it back. Son, we found his boat drifting empty a few miles off the coast the day after he dropped you off. We assumed he fell over and drowned. Sad business. I felt the blood drain from my face. I touched the pocket where I still had that piece of blue wool. I quit the service that day. I never went back to the sea. Mr. Elias leans back, exhausted. He takes a sip of his now-cold tea. The room is dead silent. Even Harold has stopped snoring. I spent the rest of my life working in a library. Dry land, lots of people. Silence in a library is different. It's peaceful, not hungry. I'm 82 now. My 24-year-old self seems like a stranger to me. That young man was so sure of himself, so sure he understood the world. But I learned something that night on Blackwood Rock. We build our little houses, we turn on our lights, and we think we have conquered the darkness. but the darkness is vast. Friends. And the ocean, ... The ocean keeps its secrets. So, Martha, when you hear the thunder, or you see the lights flicker, don't be scared. It's just the weather. But if you hear a knock on your window tonight, on the 3rd floor, he pauses, a mischievous glint in his eye. Don't answer it. Now, who wants a biscuit? I believe they're serving the ginger snaps tonight.